Hi Geometry, welcome to 7.2, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. Remember what converse means? The two values switch around. The PQ is now QP. So remember, we started with if you have a right angle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now you're going to start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We'll give you a right angle, guarantees a right angle. Alright, so I can determine if a triangle is a right triangle. And I can apply the converse of Pythagorean theorem in real life problems. So here we go. I've got my trusty pen working. And I need to find the length of the hypotenuse. This is a right angle. Looks like I stretched this triangle quite a bit. 2 squared plus 5 squared is equal to x squared. So 4 plus 25 is equal to x squared. X is going to equal the square root of 29. Remember, taking the square root is always plus or minus, but since we're looking for a distance of something, we're going to use positive. Don't just get in the habit of putting the positive value. It is plus or minus in general, but for story problems, just positive. All right, simplify. Now, I really like this one, okay? So when you're going to simplify a number, you're going to square it. You want to square both parts. Square the 5 and the square root of 3. And what happens to the square root of 3 and a square? They cancel each other out. So this will be 25 times 3. I almost wrote 9. Is equal to 75. So far so good. Now here's one that I didn't give you. I noticed in the notes, and I'm a little disappointed. And I already printed them out, so I didn't want to redo it all. But I didn't give you a lot of problems where you're finding the length of a leg. I always give you problems like this one where you're finding the hypotenuse. So if you're finding the length of a leg, remember a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. C is your hypotenuse. So 12 squared plus x squared is equal to 15 squared. Crazy 5. We have 144 plus x squared is equal to 225. Subtract 144 on both sides. X squared is equal to 81. Take the square root. X is equal to 9. Of course, it's going to be the positive one. And here we go, the converse. This is kind of tiny. Can you see it? If the square of the longest side of a triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides. So your longer side, that's your hypotenuse, is equal to the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides, then you have a right triangle. So now we're starting with if a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, then you have a right triangle. Can't write today. Alright, so now if I give you the lengths of the three sides of a triangle, can you tell me if it's a right triangle or not? So we don't know if that's a right angle. So these are my two shorter sides. Remember, 7 times 7 is 49, so that's less than 57. So we have 3 squared plus 7 squared is equal to the square root of 57 squared. 3 squared is 9 plus 49. Remember, a square and square root cancel each other out, equals 57. What's 9 plus 49? 58. Does that equal to 57? No, not a right triangle. Alright, how about this one? It probably is. Usually I give you one that is and one that's not. So here we go. Now we got to determine, did I put that in the right spot? I don't know. If I square this, you're going to get 25 times 5, which is equal to 125. Okay? And I square this, I get 121. So that is my longest side, so that's the hypotenuse. So I have 11 squared plus 2 squared. Does that equal to 5 times the square root of 5 squared? I found out that that was 125. So I have 121 plus 4. 125 is equal to 125. Guess what? We have ourselves a right angle. Alright? Check. Let's go to the next page. To make sure that we can see the whole page on the screen. Alright, Pythagorean theorem and its converse, but it's a slightly different form. This is how we're going to apply it, okay? I like that. It's kind of pretty right there. I don't think it'll print off nicely though. All right, so here's Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that will give you a right angle, okay? But now the converse. If your c squared is smaller than a squared plus b squared, you have an acute triangle. If it's equal to, it's right. If c squared is greater than, then you have an obtuse. So let's think about this. If you have an obtuse angle, these two, when you square, there's no way, once a number gets larger and larger, the square value just really gets larger. So if this turns out to be larger, you have obtuse. So verify the segment's lengths for a triangle, if it's right, acute, or obtuse. So remember, you're always going to add up the two smaller sides. And that's why I had that one page right here. If the sum of the longest side of a triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides, instead of writing the hypotenuse. So these are the two shorter sides. So we're going to take 5 squared plus 12 squared. Does that equal to 13 squared? So 25 plus 144, does that equal to 169? And you will actually start, well, I shouldn't be doing this in red. You can't see that very well. You're going to start knowing your squares really fast. 25 plus 144 is equal to 169. And guess what? It is. Okay, since they're equal, we have a right triangle. Yay! Okay, how about this one? 5, 7, 8. 5 squared plus 7 squared, does that equal to 8 squared? Alright, so we have 25 plus 49, does that equal to 64? This is 74. Okay, so the a squared plus b squared is greater than 64. If this part is greater than the c squared, it's acute. How about this one? Okay, square root of 8, that's about 3 point something, because square root of 9 is 3. Whoop, square root of 9 is 3, so it's a 2 point something, sorry. Alright, so square root of 8 squared plus 4 squared is equal to 6 squared. And I think I conveniently put them in numerical order here. So 8 plus 16, does that equal to 36? We have 24. It's less than 36. So the a squared plus b squared is smaller. So a squared plus b squared is smaller. The point's going towards this. This is obtuse. And last but not least, I know I have one of each, but what do you think it's going to be? 2 squared plus 10 squared is equal to 11 squared. 4 plus 100, does that equal to 121? I have 104 is less than 121. Remember, if a squared plus b squared is less than a squared plus b squared, the point is towards it, this will be obtuse. Alright, how about a story problem? I think I put Caitlin's name on this, I don't remember. Isaac is installing an in-ground basketball hoop next to his driveway. He wants to be perpendicular to the ground. How can he check this with his meter stick? Alright, so let me try to draw this. This is the basketball hoop, okay? And she has a meter stick, or let me say this is Isaac. Mark it off so you know this is 100. How do I know it's 100 centimeters? It's 100 centimeters in a meter. Then what you can do is measure this, measure this. What has to happen? If you want to make sure this is perpendicular, this has to happen. The height right here plus whatever this base is has to equal 100 squared. So if that works out, it's perpendicular. You don't want it leaning, because over time, especially if you dunk a lot, you'll destroy that bad boy. Okay, last page. Alright, ooh, look at this. Okay, solve x, making it a right triangle. So I want this to be a right triangle. So what I'm going to do is take this squared, and set it equal to this squared. Now you have to be really careful. Okay, you have to FOIL this. It's not x squared plus 5 squared. We have to do distributed property, remember that? X plus 5 quantity squared means x plus 5 times x plus 5. 2x plus 1 quantity squared means 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 1. So I have x squared. So when I FOIL it, I'll have x squared plus 5x is plus 10x, and then plus 25. This one, 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x plus 2x is 4x, and 1 times 1 is 1. Alright, so we have to actually solve for this. This is a quadratic. I know it's a quadratic because my highest exponent is a square. So I need to get everything on one side. So I'm going to subtract 1x squared, subtract 1x squared. We'll end up getting a 2x squared here. When I bring 10x over there, I'm subtracting 10x from this. So 4x minus 10x is negative 6x. And then when I subtract that 25, 1 minus 25 is negative 24. I'm going to factor 2 out of that because it makes it hard to factor with an a value there. And now, let's see what we got. 0 is equal to 2. X times x. What times what is 12? Remember doing this? We have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. Since it's a minus, the difference of the two values has to equal 3. Well, it's not working, is it? So if you can't factor it nicely, what do you have to use? Okay, this doesn't factor. This is when you get really handy and you go to program and go down to quadratic. Okay, so the A is 1 because I'm using this value. B is negative 3 and the C is negative 12. Okay, there's our answer. Let's do this by hand. Do you remember this? X, this is quadratic formula. X is equal to the opposite of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Alright, sorry. JD is coming back from his ski trip today. So x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 57 over 2. So that will be the final answer. Okay, what does that mean in decimal? Okay, remember that other program we have? If you go down to just quad, it'll give you the decimal values. Okay, we have 1, negative 3, negative 12. So we had, which is about 5.27 and negative 2.27. Well, what can you tell me about this one right away? If I plug it in right here, it's okay, but you cannot plug it in right there. So that's an extraneous value. It works with quadratic formula, but not for the value, not for the problem itself. Okay, concept summary, just to remind you. It's a right triangle if Pythagorean theorem holds true. If a squared plus b squared is smaller than the hypotenuse squared or the c squared, obtuse. And if they're larger, then it's acute. Here's our homework. Getting back to craziness. Have a nice evening.